Touchdown, Alabama, let's get it.
The process, no one can stop this. Hottest show in the streets, I bet you can't top this. Recruiting news and interviews, just sit back and watch this.
Recruiting news and interviews, just sit back and watch this.
The process.
How's it going, everyone? Welcome back into the process, Crimson Tide Recruiting. I am your host, Justin Smith, the Director of Recruiting for Touchdown Alabama. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. As always, the first thing I need and want you to do is hit that like button, hit the subscribe button as well. Subscribers, hit the notification bell. Be notified when we drop all of this wonderful content on our YouTube channel. As always, I'm here each week to break down the latest in Crimson Tide football recruiting news. I have a lot to get to today, including talking about the Crimson Tide's five-star quarterback commit, Julian Sand, who was in Tuscaloosa on last week for a couple of days. I will also talk about another quarterback who the Crimson Tide are targeting in the 2024 recruiting class. Will Alabama bring in two quarterbacks? I'll discuss that a little bit later in the show. Also talk about a couple of guys who want to announce commitment decisions before their senior seasons and guys who are scheduling official visits. So we are at that particular point in the recruiting cycle where Alabama is still extending some new offers. I'll talk about a guy in the 2024 class today who got picked up an offer from the Tide recently, still trying to figure out their top targets. You have guys scheduling official visits, guys who like I said, want to make a decision before their senior season. So a lot is going on in the recruiting world as always, but we're going to talk about a couple of things on today, starting with Aaron Hampton, a 2024 four-star wide receiver out of Texas who's one of the Crimson Tide's top wide receiver targets in the 2024 recruiting class, who actually has a trio of official visits locked in, who actually visit the University of Texas San Antonio in April. On the weekend of April 14th, he will be at UTSA and he will have an opportunity to take an official visit there. Will also take an official visit to Texas actually in June, on the weekend of June 16th. Also has an official visit locked in with the Crimson Tide. It will return to Tuscaloosa during the weekend of June 23rd. So right now, with those three official visits scheduled, Alabama is getting that last official visit from Hampton at this point because he only has three locked in. Like most of you guys know, most of you guys know, prospects only get 5 official visits. Of course, things can change with coaching changes, but most of the time you get 5 official visits. So when you take a look at Hampton with those 3 official visits locked in, you know he's going to look at those 3 schools, and take a look at UTSA, Texas, and Alabama really hard. Alabama has actually been trending upwards in Hampton's recruitment ever since they hosted him for an unofficial visit during the month of April for a Junior Day event. When you take a look at Hampton's game, you're talking about a 5'10", 180-pound wide receiver, most likely a slot guy who's really explosive, can tie some moves together in the open field. As you guys can see, actually has played on both sides of the football throughout his high school career so far, and you see him at safety at times. You see him go up and get the football, so he has some hops added to that 5'10" frame. So you're looking at an explosive athlete in Hampton who actually came down with 55 receptions for 1,161 yards and 13 touchdowns as a junior. So he's a top target for the Crimson Tide. Alabama will host him for an official visit on the weekend of June 23rd. Also plans to take official visits to UTSA and also take an official visit to Texas the weekend before he comes to Tuscaloosa. Like I said earlier in the show, I do want to talk about Julian Sand, the 2024 5-star quarterback out of California who was verbally committed to the Crimson Tide. Of course, Sand took an unofficial visit to Alabama last week, spent a couple of days in Tuscaloosa, had an opportunity to spend some time with Alabama's head coach Nick Saban, Alabama's players, also spent time with Alabama's new offensive coordinator Tommy Rees, who he did have a previous relationship with when Rees was on Notre Dame's coaching staff, because he was recruiting Sand when he was with the Fighting Irish. So I had an opportunity to catch up with Sand after that visit. He told me that he had a great time in Tuscaloosa, said he was in meetings, got to see practices. It was really a good time. And when he says he was in meetings, he was most likely in Alabama's quarterback offensive meetings, because a lot of these guys who have been taking unofficial visits to Alabama during spring practice, they have had an opportunity to basically sit in on meetings, basically get an opportunity to get an in-depth look, a behind-the-scenes look at what Alabama does at practice, when they're installing defenses, when they're teaching inside the film room, and they get an opportunity basically get a behind-the-scenes look at that. And I'm pretty sure Sand got a pretty in-depth in-depth look with them being verbally committed to the Crimson Tide and the future of Alabama's quarterback position. Of course, he continues to remain solid with the Tide. Also gave me an update on his physical stature, because he's a guy, I think by just looking at him, he probably weighed like 170, probably mid 170 during his junior season at Carlsbad High School. Actually told me that he's put on 20 or so pounds, and looking at that picture that he posted after taking that unofficial visit to Alabama, looks see if it may be around mid 180s, 190s. So I'm thinking he probably around 170. So he's putting on weight. He knows that it's something that he had to do. He knows that it's going to be part of his development. It's always good to hear young players say what they need to do in terms of improving their body, whether you're like saying you need to add on some weight, or whether you're like another guy who needs to drop some weight. Being aware of that is really big for any prospect. So Sand had a great time in Tuscaloosa, still locked in with the Crimson Tide. But a question that some may have is, will Alabama take 2 quarterbacks in this 2024 recruiting class? And that is starting to become a question, because the Crimson Tide is still recruiting and still been in contact with a couple of quarterbacks, including Aaron Noland, a 4-star quarterback out of Georgia, who put Alabama in his top 7. He put Alabama in his top 7 along with programs like Clemson. He actually has a commitment date. He will announce his commitment in April. When you look at Noland, he's a special quarterback. Great accuracy. Spoke highly of the Crimson Tide when they offered him. So when you take a look at Noland's recruitment with that top 7 at the moment, you're looking at Alabama, Arkansas, Clemson, Ohio State, Oregon, Miami, and Texas A&M. Will announce his commitment on April 8th. And when you look at Noland's situation, he knows that Alabama has a quarterback commit. Alabama, from what he's told me, Nick Saban is open to adding a second quarterback to this 2024 recruiting class, and he has no problem being that. If he wanted to go to Alabama, he feels like the competition would not turn him down from Alabama. But when you take a look at these other programs like Clemson, Arkansas, Ohio State, Oregon, Miami, and Texas A&M, you could see, I guess, a clear path to playing time there. But he is still considering looking at the Crimson Tide. Like I said, he's open to being competitive. He told me that he plays the quarterback position. The competition is a part of football, and he's aware of that. So he's never shied away from competition. So he says he's not going to be afraid of that. And he's a special 4-star quarterback in this 2024 recruiting class. And some may wonder, why would Alabama take 2 quarterbacks in this recruiting class after taking 2 quarterbacks in the 2023 recruiting cycle, and Dylan Lonergan and Eli Holstein. In my opinion, you don't need 2 quarterbacks, of course, but I think you have to be aware of your situation if you are a team, in terms of your roster, in terms of your numbers, because things can quickly change with the transfer portal. Not saying that any one of Alabama's quarterbacks will enter the transfer portal, but I just feel Alabama will have to protect itself in case it does happen. So I think that is why Alabama is leaving that door open. So we'll see what happens with Noland. I know the Crimson Tide are heavily interested in him. That is why they offered him when Sam was already verbally committed to the Crimson Tide. Like I said, he's locked in. A commitment date, has that top 7 in place with Alabama, Arkansas, Clemson, Ohio State, Oregon, Miami, and Texas A&M. Alabama was looking at possibly hosting him again before he announced that commitment decision. I think that visit could play a role in his decision. So we'll just keep you updated on Noland. But I did want to give you guys that update, that he does have a commitment date locked in. He does have a top 7 at the moment. Alabama is included in that top 7. He has expressed an interest to come to Alabama and compete if he has to compete for a spot, because he feels he plays quarterbacks. Only one quarterback on the field. No matter where he goes, he's going to have to compete. So just keep that at the front. I will say the back of your mind, but at the front of your mind, because April 8th is not that far away. But like I said earlier in the show, the Crimson Tide are also still extending new offers, including some new offers to some 2024 prospects. Actually recently offered 2024 wide receiver Josiah Martin out of Texas. And when I watch this guy's film, he has some of the best routes I've seen out of some wide receivers in this 2024 class in terms of his ability to create separation off the release, great routes, crisp routes, his ability to create separation at the top of routes. I really like Josiah Martin's route running ability, which is why I feel he's an elite route running in this 2024 recruiting class. But he picked up an offer from the Crimson Tide. The offer came from Alabama's wide receiver coach Harmon Wiggins, who told Martin that he wants him to get to Tuscaloosa as soon as possible to start building their relationship. Of course, I'm going to read you guys a couple of quotes that I got from Martin. He told me Coach Wiggins hit him up a couple of weeks ago before he got the offer from the Crimson Tide. He said they've been in contact. He said they had a great conversation, was started with the introduction and ended with an offer. He said he was blown away. Honestly, it's a dream program. I feel like every college with success has implemented a piece of what Alabama's program is. It is top notch. They have it all. He said, like I said earlier, he said Coach Wiggins wants him there ASAP. So his family is trying to set up a visit to Alabama as soon as possible. He actually wants to announce a commitment decision in July. So he plans to take a lot of visits over the spring, most likely. Like I said, a lot of guys who want to commit in July, early August before their senior seasons, those guys are going to try to push to get official visits out the way early in the summer. So Martin could do that. Of course, Alabama is coming in a little bit on the late side of his recruitment, but he has a lot of respect for the Crimson Tide. Like always, like I consistently say, when Alabama joins your recruitment, things change. Alabama has the name, the brand, and Alabama, the name still stands for a lot. And when they jump in on your recruitment, things change pretty quickly. So Martin is a guy I think the Crimson Tide will benefit from getting on campus here pretty soon. But there's a lot of targets to know here in this early part of the 2024 recruiting cycle. Martin is just one of those wide receiver prospects to the Crimson Tide really seem to like in terms of his film. I mean, a couple of other guys who the Tide really like are a pair of twins, and those guys are Gerard and Jacob Smith, four-star defensive linemen out of Connecticut. Attended Loomis Chaffee School during their junior season, the same high school that Alabama's freshman and Finland native Olas Elanin attended during his couple of years in America. But Jacob and Gerard Smith got back to Tuscaloosa. They've been to Alabama several times over the last year. I would say Alabama has to be at the top or near the top in terms of the schools they have visited the most. I know they came back for a visit during the football season. I think they were there last spring, and they did come back during the summer and camped in Tuscaloosa, where they both earned offers from the Crimson Tide. So they've basically been in Tuscaloosa 4 times over the last year. And when you're outside of Alabama and you come to the school 4 times, that is saying a lot. You're really interested. So Alabama is really interested in them. It seems they had a dope visit. A visit went as expected because they know what to expect when they come to Tuscaloosa. Like I said, they visited during the spring before, so they know what was going to be in Tuscaloosa. So they had a great time. I think the Crimson Tide are in a good position with them. Wouldn't surprise me if Alabama grabbed an official visit from them in the future. We'll keep our eyes on that. It was good the Crimson Tide got them both back on campus. Gerard and Jacob are both talented prospects. One of them is more of an edge rusher. The other guy is more of an interior defensive lineman. Whoever land this duo would be very, very fortunate because they are a talented twin duo. The Crimson Tide are just one of the top programs involved in their recruitment. I think they recently got out to Georgia, got out to Nebraska, got out to Notre Dame. So they are really trying to get a feel of a lot of different programs. But I do feel Alabama's in the mix at the moment for both of those guys. The last guy I want to talk about today is actually an in-state, a younger guy. The youngest guy we'll talk about on today's show, and I'm talking about Jermichael Jones, a 2026 running back out of Trinity Presbyterian School in Montgomery, Alabama. One of the rising running backs in the country. I'm talking about his offer list is starting to rival some of the top national recruits. He's only a 9th grader. When you take a look at his offer list, he has Alabama, he has Georgia, also has USC. So he has a very impressive offer list. I think his offer list is going to be even crazier in the future with him already having early offers from some of the top programs in the nation. When you take a look at his game, he looks the part already, man. You can see why he's already getting this amount of attention. Talking about a kid who's 5'10", leaning towards 200 pounds already. physical runner, patient runner. Like I said, he looks the part, waits for his blocks to set up when he's running the football, carries the football with a lot of swagger and just with a lot of confidence, because when you're running that patient, letting blocks set up, knowing when to pick your spots, having good vision, you got to be confident to do that type of stuff, especially at the age that he is. So he's enjoying his recruitment, an opportunity to catch up with Jones and talk about the Alabama offer. Of course, spoke highly of it, spoke highly of Nick Saban. Getting an offer, in-state recruit. We know it's a big offer from him. You guys can read more about Jones and some other 2025 recruits who recently got offers from the Crimson Tide over at touchdownalabama.com. But thank you guys so much for joining me today on this episode of The Process. As always, before you leave, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Subscribers, hit the notification bell. Be notified when we drop content on our YouTube channel. After you leave here, go to touchdownalabama.com, pick up your subscription today. With that subscription, you will be able to read all of our subscriber only articles. Then head to the Google Play Store if you have an Android device to download the Touchdown Alabama app. If you have an Apple device, go to the Apple App Store to download the app today. As always, I am Justin Smith, the Director of Recruiting for Touchdown Alabama.
Process.